Hey, I'm Merc the Mouth. I'm just getting started. Let's go to the tail of the tape, Al.
Well, these numbers, when you look at them, are very similar. There's almost nothing to choose from here. And on top of that, they're both lefties. Really, the major difference between these two fighters is their personalities. Paulie alluded to Jojo Diaz being so outgoing and an extrovert, and Gary Russell is more quiet and somber.
Rules for tonight's fight: there is no standing 8 count, no 3 knockdown rule. The referee or doctor can stop the fight. A fighter cannot be saved by the bell in any round. If an accidental foul or headbutt causes a fight to end within 4 rounds, it's a no decision. After 4 rounds, they go to the scorecards for a technical decision. All right, here with the official introductions, Jimmy Lennon Jr.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to you, and we welcome you to the MGM National Harbor here in National Harbor, Maryland, for the featured bout of the evening, brought to you by TGB Promotions in association with Golden Boy Promotions and Showtime. We are sponsored by Corona Extra, La Cerveza Más Fina, and Casa Noble Tequila, the Noble Pursuit. This bout in the ring is sanctioned by the WBC, the president, Mauricio Sulaiman, and the supervisor is Bob Yalen, along with the Maryland State Athletic Commission, the chairman, Arnie Dansicker, and the executive director is Patrick Panella. Introducing our 3 judges, scoring from ringside, from Ellicott City, Maryland, David Breslow. From Las Vegas, Nevada, Dave Moretti, and from Greenwood, Indiana, Nathan Palmer. Introducing our 3rd man to the ring, the referee in charge of the action, Kenny Chevalier. All right, fans, here we go with the main event of the evening, 12 rounds of boxing for the WBC Featherweight Championship of the World. And now, ladies and gentlemen in attendance, and boxing fans joining us around the world, live from the MGM National Harbor, it's showtime! Introducing to you first, on my left, the challenger, fighting out of the red corner, wearing silver trunks with red trim, fighting out of South El Monte, California. He weighed in at a featherweight limit of 126 pounds, a 2012 U.S. Olympian. He is undefeated in his campaign as a professional with a record of 26 wins, no losses, and 14 wins coming by way of knockout. Tonight, he is making his first attempt at a world title. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the WBC #1 featherweight contender, introducing the undefeated Joseph Jojo Diaz Jr. And his opponent across the ring is the defending world champion on my right, fighting out of the blue corner. Wearing black trunks with gold trim, he is fighting out of and representing his home of Capitol Heights, Maryland. He's weighed 125 1/2 pounds. As an Olympian, he represented the United States in the 2008 boxing team and holds a professional record of 28 wins, 1 loss, with 17 wins coming by way of knockout. Tonight, he is making the 4th defense of his world title. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning and the defending WBC Featherweight Champion of the World, introducing Mr. Russell Jr. Once again, our referee in charge, Kenny Chevalier, now to give instructions.
Let's go. All right, look here. Take a look at this right here. I'm going to allow a little bit right here up top, okay? The main thing I want is a clean break, all right? Watch the low blows. Now, I don't want them heads used in the wrong way. Touch these gloves up.
Kenny Chevalier, 24 years of pro experience as a referee, over 400 bouts, as we get set for this 126-pound title affair scheduled for 12 rounds.
Hey, back it up, back it up. Back it up. You ready? Time in. Hey, let's go! The bell! I need the bell! The bell's it, let's go.
The bell and round one. A battle of southpaws. Gary Russell Jr., the champion in the red and silver. Make that black and gold. The challenger, Joseph Diaz Jr., in the red and silver.
One thing I'm noticing right away, Russell coming out on the front foot and trying to back up Diaz, maybe trying to surprise him a little bit.
Yeah, that is a little bit surprising. And you see him using the jab. Russell averages 32 jabs per round according to the show stats, and everything flows from that punch for him.
Vicente Saldivar, Nassim Ahmed, two all-time greats, featherweight southpaw champions. Double jab by Russell.
Well, we'll see if this plays the Diaz's hands or if this actually throws Diaz off. You know, it's interesting.
Yes.
I don't even think Diaz expected Russell to come out in this aggressive fashion. Talking to him yesterday at the fighter meetings, he thought he was going to have to, you know, walk down Russell and be the bigger man. So we'll see how this starts to evolve here. Interesting beginning.
Again, Russell effectively attacking the body with the jab. Hand speed on display early, putting together combinations. Piston-like double pump jab for Russell.
Russell is a very good jabber. Not a lot of southpaws have this kind of jab. You have almost like a Hector Camacho type of jab, you know? It's really piston-like speed jab from that southpaw stance.
Short left uppercut delivered by Diaz, just past the midpoint of the first round.
Diaz wants to go to the body. They watched the fight in which Vasily Lomachenko beat Russell, and they loved his body work. And there you see the going to the body is Diaz.
And you also see the potential risk of going to the body as Russell tried to whip that right hook in on the counter. He didn't get it in there, but that's the risk of guys trying to go to the body of Russell. He has that catch and shoot with that right hook, and he's had knockouts of it. I remember him drilling Patrick Hyland with that.
Under a minute left in the opening round. 1-2 combination put together by Russell. Again, able to split Diaz's guard with that lightning quick jab, and that has been Russell's money punch in this first 3 minutes.
I see what Diaz is trying to do. He's trying not to make the jab put him out of position. He's trying to block it with his hands up. I think maybe he should start probably parrying it instead of just keeping his gloves up, though, because Russell is getting between the gloves the way he's holding them up right now.
Less than half a minute remaining in round one. The story has been Gary Russell Jr.'s jab, Al, and how effective it's been in this early start.
It is. Now Diaz is starting to cut the distance a little, which is important.
Yeah, you see Diaz getting just a little more aggressive here.
10 seconds, step on the bell.
We're going to take a look at the keys to victory in this matchup, and we will start with Gary Russell Jr. Well, he definitely established the jab in round number one a lot. And we saw some of the combination punching that's going to be very important for him during the course of this fight. He's a great combination puncher, and they think that Diaz freezes when he does that. The right hook, he's got one of the best right hooks of any southpaw in boxing, and we'll see it on display. As for Jojo Diaz, he didn't do it in round one. I think he's going to have to turn up the volume and try to be very busy in this fight. Got to keep the left hand up to block that right hook by Russell. And he has a very, very solid straight left that he throws from actually a bunch of different angles. He wants to use that.
Stay back. Stay back. Stay back.
Round two underway. It was almost a year to the day, May 20th of last year. Russell won via 7th round TKO against Oscar Escandón right here in this venue. He was coming off a 13-month layoff, but looked very sharp despite the inactivity, and he looks very sharp tonight.
Diaz catching the shots on the gloves, but he's not really reacting yet. He's trying to still get the timing of Russell.
Is that right hook by Russell?
Russell's speed beginning to be deviled. Jojo Diaz here in round 2. Neither fighter has been down in their respective careers. Russell has tasted defeat against Vasily Lomachenko last week, became the fastest fighter to become a 3-division champion. Now Diaz slips a jab through the guard.
And then what Diaz has to do, a great combination punching by Gary Russell, but you punch yourself out a little bit. If you're the opponent, you have to jump on Russell right after he throws a big combination like that.
And cutting that distance is important to slot him to get some work to the body.
There's a good left hand behind the guard by Diaz. He's found some success with his left and with the body work here in the second stanza. Diaz now putting together his punches. Turning into a firefight early, as anticipated.
This is the geography that Diaz wants in this fight. Not that Russell can't fight on the inside, but this is the geography he wants.
And Russell whips a shot to the body, just past the midpoint of the second round. And both fighters putting the pedal to the metal here in the second 3-minute frame.
Don't push, don't push.
Left uppercut on the inside scores for Russell. Ooh, right body shot by Diaz.
And that's the thing, at this range, both guys can land their good body shots, and they're going to have the option to throw those.
Shoe shine to the body and a beautiful right hook upstairs by Diaz. Diaz bouncing back in the second round. Admirable.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, Russell not giving ground himself either. This is going to be a real battle of attrition here.
Another shot to the body with the right hand by Diaz. Lands the left hand upstairs. Russell coming forward. And again, a left to the liver by Joseph Diaz Jr. And he lands that left hand to the jaw.
And Russell again tried that catch and shoot right hook. He just missed it.
Diaz is countering the right hook of Russell very well.
A double left hand scores for Diaz. He goes to the body again. Less than 20 seconds remaining. Plenty of action tailor-made to your satisfaction in round 2.
I'll tell you what, Guy Russell's not going to do the rest of the fight. He's probably never going to throw another 10-punch combination again the rest of the fight. Because that one punch himself out and allow Diaz to get back into the round.
A scintillating second round is in the books.
I think both guys now respect each other.
You hurt your hand? All right, look. Sean, speed equal power. Control your stick, right?
Early in the round, Gary Russell got
shot
off to a good start in it, and this is what Paulie was alluding to. He was throwing combinations, not everything landing, but keeping Jojo Diaz on his back foot and not allowing him to throw punches, but maybe too much.
But good combination punching, sometimes the speed will intimidate, but I admire Diaz for not being intimidated by that speed.
And later on, speaking to Paulie's point, it was Diaz who cut the distance. Now, interestingly, used the jab, and then he threw some thunderous body punches against Gary Russell. There, the beautiful uppercut.
2 different angles of the left hand, 3 different angles of the left hand, a wide left hand to the head, left uppercut, and then a wide left hand to the body.
And
just
he
like
told
we
us
about that yesterday in the fighter meeting. He uses his left hand a lot of different ways and a lot of different angles.
This is round number 3. We are off to the races here at MGM National Harbor. Gary Russell Jr. in the third title defense of his 126-pound belt against the undefeated mandatory challenger, the ultra game Jojo Diaz. Left uppercut on the inside lands for Russell. Counter left over the top by Diaz.
And Russell not to be undone. He won't back off either.
He's thrown some nice combinations here in this round, but again, will he overdo it?
I think this time he can serve himself a little bit more.
Look at the total punches in this fight, and while Russell has thrown more, Diaz landing at a very good clip.
I think Russell here picking his spots a little better. I think last round he tried to come out and try to assault Diaz and see if Diaz had an answer for it. And he found out he did, so I think this time he's being more choosy and picking his spots well here.
Looping left hands by Russell, counter left, chopping left hand by Diaz. Diaz.
The Russell left in this fight has been more of a weapon than we're accustomed to seeing.
We talk about Russell's hand speed, but he has also recorded some impressive one-punch KOs. Roberto Ruiz, Roberto Castaneda, and again, riding a 3-fight winning streak, all via form of the knockouts.
This round, like the last one, very good for Russell early. Let's see if Diaz can come back or not.
In fact, Russell winning the title in his 2 title defenses have all been inside the distance. Last time he went the distance was in 2014.
Good exchange of body shots there.
You can feel those body shots at ringside.
Of course, Badu Jack and Donna Stevenson known for their body work. They're coming up, and Russell may have been staggered or
nice left hand by Diaz, and another.
Russell's head down. It's still a good shot.
Final minute of the third.
I think Russell's got to try to get back on his jab a little bit more. You know, he's trying to match left hands and then big shots with Diaz. I think when he's on the jab, he controls Diaz's output. And if he controls Diaz's output, you know, he's not throwing as many big shots himself, you know. So he's trying to get back on the jab here, but not as much snap on it now.
Diaz became the mandatory challenger in September of 2017 in Vegas, defeating Rafael Rivera. But then in February of this year, he stopped former featherweight champion Victor Terraza. So Diaz willing to put his mandatory status on the line in order to stay active, and here gets the biggest fight of his career, and he's in tough against the champ.
So when Russell jabs, he controls Diaz's output.
You get that run away. You can't be giving those wrong with it, all right? You got to stay a little bit. As soon as he's fucking throwing, you got to go to him. You got to go to him.
Russell got off to a very quick start in this last round again, going both downstairs and upstairs. Gary Russell is a very good body puncher as well as that's a nice combination, a jab and left hand. And then we'll see him rip the body, that semi-block, but you see him trying to go downstairs and showing a variety of punches and kind of getting those in. He was very active early in the round, as he was in the previous round. And in this round, he kind of kept it up.
This is round 4, scheduled for 12 for Gary Russell Jr.'s 126-pound title. An odd statistic, Jojo Diaz is Russell's first unbeaten opponent since his second pro fight back in 2009.
Well, people have criticized the level of opposition he's faced, and I think somewhat justifiably.
Although he did fight Lomachenko, who already had taken the one loss he had, right?
Yes, that is true, but that was difficult for him. But beyond that, not so much.
And now Russell beginning to use some footwork and using angles.
You're letting the fight Russell has to fight. Change the angle, use the jab, and just pick the spots. If you try to make it a muscle fight, you're giving Diaz what he wants.
And he's giving a little lateral movement to Jojo Diaz. That's important.
I don't think Diaz is the kind of guy you're going to break his will. So I think you probably put that out the window, and you just try to dazzle him a little bit with the jab and change the angle. I think Russell's taking that approach early this round.
Look at the volume of punching. Russell throwing so much more for himself.
Diaz now beginning to put together punches, Al. You've said he's got to turn up that volume.
As soon as Diaz does close the distance, he's ripping the body right away. You can tell that.
Beautiful body shot delivered by Diaz.
And that is what
Lomachenko used.
Wow. Man, he's getting him in there, too. They're trying to get between the gloves.
Well, Jojo Diaz, a proud Mexican-American, and he is definitely living up to that Mexican fighter reputation with that stout body work.
Now, he's trying to mentally break Russell. Russell, so far, staying sharp, staying on it. But we'll see how the second half of the fight.
Russell trying to keep Diaz at bay with that jab.
But I need to tell people something they might not know about Jojo Diaz. He's an extraordinary finisher in fights. And I'll talk about that as we get later to it. but he finishes fights very strong, so we'll see.
I like how he just cut off Russell there. That's going to be something he's probably going to have to do because Russell has some great change of angles and uses the jab very well. So cutting off the ring is going to be important for Diaz.
Diaz started boxing at the age of 11, was always the small guy, said he was picked on and bullied. His father is self-taught trainer using technology to teach him the nuances and the techniques of boxing. Actually, both fathers are in their sons' respective corners, but Jojo Diaz, right hand by Russell, briefly hurting Diaz. Diaz goes to the body with a right hand.
It was a great catch and shoot by Russell and turned into a combination.
Russell targeting the jaw of Diaz.
That's what I like about both these guys. Great poker face, good Diaz. Poker face on both guys. You just don't know how much they're being affected by these shots.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Good finish to the round for Russell. May have won him the round.
Hey, I say stop. You step back, okay? Don't stay there like that.
But see, what's going on? So you start letting them slide back, and pitter patch.
Yeah.
Sliding back, pitter patches. Get into them. What are those little pitter patches gonna do? They ain't gonna do nothing. He's trying to set you up, but he's trying to set you up to throw it from the outside. You got to get closer.
Quicker than that.
You understand?
Walk him down quicker than that, okay? You're giving him a little too much room when you're walking. Give it to him a little quicker.
Joe,
Great advice in the corner
he
from
thinks
his
you're at
dad,
that
telling him to walk him down. And the last part of this round may have given Russell the round. He really finished strongly. There's the patented right hook of Russell. Over again, the left hand that I mentioned, Diaz has to keep that left hand up. But when Russell gets you in that position where he's throwing those combinations, he's tough to spot.
And it was a catch and shoot. The reason the left hand wasn't up is because Diaz was throwing the shot. Russell, great transition from defense right to offense, and he turned it into a combination, which is even more impressive.
The fifth round begins here at MGM National Harbor. Gary Russell Jr. fighting in front of friends and family. Jojo Diaz going cross-country for his first opportunity at a championship. And Russell immediately begins to establish the jab.
In the last minute of the last round, according to show stats, Russell outlanded Diaz 7-3. That might have been enough to win him that round. Diaz is walking him down. He just needs to be a little busier, I think, when he's doing it, and at least establish the jab a little bit.
And that's where the Russell jab becomes key. Is Diaz trying to walk him down, but he's not able to be busy as he's walking him down because he's worrying about the Russell jab.
Diaz clipping Russell with the left hand.
And that was him timing the jab and getting over it with the left.
Leave it alone. Leave his hand.
A minute gone in the fifth, and referee Chevalier admonishing Diaz.
I hope Chevalier doesn't take away the body attack from Diaz by being too overzealous with those warnings.
He didn't take away that right hand to the body by Diaz.
See, I'm not on board with this. I don't know why those warnings are called.
Well, I spoke too soon because he did.
Yeah, I mean,
and it was a legal body shot, Paulie, right?
Yeah, you can't.
There's good combination by Diaz.
Diaz has his own speed. You know, we're always talking about the speed of Russell, and there it is right there. But Diaz has his own hand speed when he does let his hands go.
And he told us he thought Russell was underestimating that.
And we've seen already from Russell the way he's able to change up that speed and utilize different techniques, very adaptable to all styles. He considers himself a boxer-puncher. Diaz again digging to the body with the right hand.
You're talking about Bobby Jack, one of the best body punchers in boxing. We'll see him later. Diaz is doing a great job of that in this fight.
Final 60 seconds of the fifth round.
Close round.
Diaz has to be a little busier, and I think he's not as busy because of the Russell jab. Sometimes the Russell jab is winning him the rounds, not because the damage is doing, but because it's what it's not letting Diaz do.
Diaz said that if Russell gets a bit overconfident, he's going to be in for a rude awakening. He said that Russell would be shocked with not only Diaz's punching power, but also his combination and his speed.
See Russell sticking out his tongue to Diaz. Diaz is doing a good job walking him down. A nice counter left hand.
This could be a round Diaz might be stealing because he's landing some nice shots.
Yeah, and this is chance right here. He's got Russell stopped. Good body shots. Nice up. And again, the change of angle on the left hand.
Diaz putting together some nice combinations down the stretch of the 5th round. Close quarters affair.
He might have stolen it there. Just like Russell landed a big combination at the end of the last round, and maybe say, oh, another combination. Good body shots.
A man with title aspirations of his own, a former 154-pound champion. He'll get another opportunity at that title when he faces Jermell Charlo June the 9th on Showtime. Austin, no doubt Trout is in the house.
Set to load up on your shots, man. Don't help them. You got to be set to load up on your shots. Don't help them. Don't help them. Slow it right. You know your position, right? Good. Position. Turn them. You ain't turning. You're not pivoting over to a hook. Make him throw a hook. Pivot on the side and do your sweep. It's going to be there. We worked on it. Right? Come on, control it. Keep man. Stay in control. Don't give him nothing, man.
Step back for me. I mean it, okay? That's okay. I see what he's doing, and I see what you're doing.
Interesting stat, Diaz has landed 44 body punches so far to 21 by Russell, according to Show Stats. So, and those are thunderous body shots.
This is round number 6. Both authored stellar amateur careers, culminating with appearances in the Olympics. And for Gary Russell Jr.'s amateur career includes a victory over fellow 126-pound title holder Leo Santa Cruz, who will rematch Abner Martes on June 9th on Showtime. And Jojo Diaz, he owns a victory over another 126-pound champion, Oscar Valdez, in the unpaid ranks, as Russell blasts a combination.
These rounds are so similar. Russell wins the first minute more often than not, and then Diaz comes back.
Now, it's not doing as much damage as you'd like to think of Diaz because he's blocking a lot of it. Now, the reason sometimes Diaz loses the exchange is because he doesn't punch back. So Russell automatically, whether it's getting blocked or not, looks better. But it's not doing the damage, so Diaz is still walking him down, and that's where it gets tricky for Russell as this fight wears on. We'll see.
Diaz trying to cut off the ring, keep Russell cornered. Russell trying to angle his way out, now along the ropes.
Russell using time-conserving measures now.
Left hand on the break by Diaz again. He targets the body with his right hand. Double jab, beautiful combination by Jojo Diaz.
Pretty early in the fight for Russell to be using energy-conserving moves.
But you know what it is, Al? He's throwing too many combinations.
And he does it again there, about an 8-punch combo.
This is the kind of fight where the jab is important. You can, if a guy's walking you down and not throwing punches until he gets to the pocket like Diaz likes to do, you can keep him off just with the jab, as long as you vary it enough. Russell's not content enough to do that, though. And he's looking for a big shot to get Diaz off of him.
Diaz with the edge in terms of connects when it comes to power punches. Russell leans down, gets tagged with that left hand from Diaz. Final minute of the 6th. Diaz walking down the champion, but Russell able to keep him at bay with that buzzsaw speed.
And some of the body work by Russell there, which is very good. Russell has had a pretty good round here.
And a double right hand, one to the body, one upstairs to the jaw for Diaz. Double jab, overhand left, and Diaz continuing to walk down Russell.
And there's where the change of angles. When Russell gives his change of angles, he's not stationary. Nice counter right hand by Russell. When he's not stationary like this, Diaz has a hard time.
Combination by Russell.
Diaz has a hard time keeping up with his footing.
We are headed into the second half of this 12-round, 126-pound championship affair at MGM National Harbor.
And this fight is worthy of a world championship. Both these guys quality so far.
You got to throw more combinations. You got to throw more combinations and more pressure, Joe. Listen, son. You kept giving those rounds. It's like he's getting one round, you're getting one round. No, you got to start taking the round. Okay? You can't take one round, give him one, take one round, give him one. You got to keep going with it. You understand? Keep putting that pressure and get in there right away. And what it is that you're getting close to him, you're letting them start. You got to start right away. You get close to him. You understand?
Coming off those punches. When he throws the shot, you come back with something. Don't always just stay waiting and waiting. You're waiting a little too much.
You got to create something.
Don't give him that time, okay? Because he's taking a break.
Well, you're tired. You get tired now. Lift your legs out.
It defeats the purpose for me to be in my corner if we ain't getting instructions already.
Man, you get enough instructions. Stand up in the gym, goddamn. Hey, Shorty. Make it do, man. Give me some.
Just like that.
Give me some. Yeah.
Drop the time on the floor.
Give me some.
Drop it. Drop it.
Stay back.
So at the midpoint of a terrific battle for the 126-pound title belonging to Gary Russell Jr. We've seen some fantastic fights and rivalries throughout the years in the featherweight division. Of course, who could forget Willie Pep and Sandy Sadler? And did you know, Al, that Sandy Sadler's nephew is hip-hop pioneer Grand Master Flash?
I did not know that.
We got two flashy fighters here, and Gary Russell Jr. and Jojo Diaz.
Speaking of pop culture reference,
And let's bring in our unofficial scorer, Steve Farhood.
Mo, both fighters very successful in doing what they're trying to do, but still there have been dramatic shifts in almost every round. I think Russell has a slight edge, flashier work, his work upstairs, Diaz's work downstairs. That's the challenge for the judges. How do you balance, how do you equate those two things?
And by the way, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, the first hip-hop act inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We've got the Furious 2 on display here, Al.
We do.
Furious action, then, to clarify, between Jojo Diaz and Gary Russell Jr. And Russell very content to fight off his back foot with that stout jab, comes forward with a scoring 1-2.
if you're going to tell me if Diaz is going to make a difference in this fight here in these rounds, he's going to have to start jabbing with Russell. He's trying to walk him down without jabbing, and Russell's starting to not let him get the free entrance every time.
And the interesting thing, Diaz has a pretty good jab. He's just not trying it.
The thing about throwing a jab at Russell is, but you might get it countered.
Exactly.
So you can't just throw it. You got to know how to throw it.
Well, you have to double with it or come with something behind.
I'm noticing a pattern here. The way that Gary Russell Jr. is, the method he's utilizing to get off the ropes is just leaning into Diaz and wrestling him away. So Diaz doing a good job of cutting off the ring, but it's Russell that is pumping up the volume of punches.
Russell has thrown 69 punches in this round to 12 by Diaz.
Diaz did a good job there of not accepting the clinch, because Diaz has to start taking away those rest periods for Russell. Russell's a veteran fighter, and he knows how to take those little cheap breaths that veterans like to take.
Diaz making the investment to the body, but Gary Russell Jr. talks about his inactivity. He says he likes to preserve his body. He's had hand issues in the past. By the way, his dad wishes that Gary Russell Jr. would fight more often, but his conditioning is stellar. Under 30 seconds left in the 7th.
You know, when Diaz punches, he's effective, but he just hasn't been able to get off as much as he wants.
Diaz has to change the gears a little bit. Maybe start feinting a little bit, using his jab for sure, but also maybe using the feints or changing his levels.
Well, we said goodbye to Lois Lane earlier this week, R.I.P. Margot Kidder, but we've got our first look at Superman coming up next. Adonis Stevenson will be making the 9th defense of his light heavyweight crown, his 2nd title fight in Toronto. He defeated Tommy Karpency there, and he, of course, with that potent left hand that he calls the Superman punch. And he will defend against Badu Jack. Will Jack provide Stevenson with the kryptonite? It could be in the form of that bodacious body punching that the 2-division champion is known for. It's Adonis Stevenson, Badu Jack for the light heavyweight title from the Air Canada Centre in Toronto, coming up next.
Seconds down.
This is round number 8.
Let's go.
Gary Russell Jr. in the black and gold. Joseph Diaz Jr., the mandatory challenger in the red and silver.
You know, in his last 5 fights, Russell has averaged 69 punches per round. Tonight he's averaging 88. Can he maintain that through this
Beautiful right hook, or left hook by the champion, Gary Russell Jr.
And again, set up because Russell was distracting Diaz with his jab, varying the jab, and then he came around with a big shot. And that's kind of how you conserve energy, yet still not lose the round.
Russell has mixed in that jab to the body out, using it to really diversify his attack.
Well, he's a superb technician, that's for sure. And you look at the records of these two fighters going into the final rounds. Diaz, in his other fights, has been a tremendous finisher, but we'll see if he can do that here tonight.
This is Jojo Diaz's second scheduled 12-rounders. We are into the second minute of the 8th round, and Russell attacking the body with the left hand.
Russell's only been 12 one time before. That was against Lomachenko, and he didn't do well in later rounds against Lomachenko, but that fight had already been going against him already. This fight's different.
And that fight was against Lomachenko.
Yeah, who was, even though it was only his 3rd pro fight, he's special at that point. They're now considered one of perhaps the best in boxing.
Oh, nice left hand by Diaz.
Diaz has to change his speed of the gears. I was saying in the end of the last round.
Let's go.
He's coming forward. He's showing he still wants it. He's got to be a bit more creative with his attack, because Russell has shown some good adjustments, some good creativity in the way he stopped being a still target for Diaz.
There's 3 lefts in a row by Diaz. He often does that, but has not done it in this fight so much.
Under a minute left in the 8th frame. Diaz being stymied by the jab of Russell. Diaz clips Russell with the left hand, has his right hand down at his belt line.
See, Diaz had Russell there where he wanted him. Russell came out jabbing. It wasn't so much the effectiveness of the jab, but what it did was it changed Diaz's position, so it allowed Russell to get off that bad position or off the ropes. Sometimes that's what the jab will do, and it'll prevent Diaz from setting you up.
And there's Diaz walking in with the jab, and look how much more effective he is there.
And landed a double right hand, one to the body and one upstairs off of the jab.
And that's because the jab is not just for landing. Sometimes you'll miss a jab, but the way the guy moves defensively, trying to slip it, puts him out of position, and you can land the follow-up combination.
Well, this is the second of 2 126-pound title fights taking place today. Earlier in the United Kingdom, another world title fight at 126. IBF champion Lee Selby defending his belt against Josh Warrington in Leeds, England. The fight was available on our Showtime digital platforms. And we pick up the action in round 2. Warrington in front of his hometown crowd of Leeds in a soccer stadium. A reported 20,000 in attendance. Accidental clash of heads, opening up a big cut over the left eye of the defending champion, Selby. There was talk that the fight would be stopped after cuts over both eyes of the defending champion due to accidental clash of heads. Selby complaining about rabbit punching.
IBF Featherweight Champion of the World, Josh the Leeds Warrior Warrington.
And the major upset for Lee Selby, losing his crown to Josh Warrington via split decision. Most of us thought it was a unanimous decision win for Josh Warrington. This is round 9.
Let him out.
And if a title is to change hands here, it's going to be up to Jojo Diaz to up the pace and make some dramatic things happen in these final 4 rounds.
Mauro Ranallo, Al Bernstein, Paulie Malignaggi, and Brian Custer here at MGM National Harbor just outside of Washington, D.C. Coming up next, coverage of the light heavyweight title fight in Canada at the Air Canada Center in Toronto. Adonis Stevenson defending his crown against Badu Jack. Our Jim Gray is in the 6th tonight.
Step back, don't push it.
Our unofficial scorer, Steve Farhood, has Gary Russell Jr. ahead by 4 points.
See what that jab of Russell just did? It didn't land, but what it did was it forced Diaz back to center ring. Now that gives Russell a chance to give more options to move or punch. It gives him more options. If Diaz closes too much gaps, Russell runs out of options.
Gary Russell Jr. quicker than a sneeze, and that speed has been on display throughout the fight. Here now, midpoint of round 9. What adjustments does Jojo Diaz have to make, Al, in order to get back into this fight?
Well, the one most important one is to jab his way in so he can get on the inside to land those power punches, and he's got to close the distance. He will not win it fighting at this distance.
Yeah, he's got to jab creatively, behind some feints, change his levels, change the look.
Beautiful double jab to the sternum and the midsection by Gary Russell Jr. Pinpoint accuracy.
Russell this has been a very consistent performance by Gary Russell. Being busy, looked for a little while there like the pressure of Diaz was bothering him, but he really came back from that.
Paulie, have you seen any effects whatsoever of Jojo Diaz's concerted body attack to Russell?
No, I haven't seen so much of the effect, but what I saw was Russell not always putting as much oomph on his shots. And round 2, at the beginning of round 2, I thought it was key. I thought Russell tested Diaz and came out with some heavy thunder. Now, since then, Russell picks his spots to throw heavy and then sometimes just throw with speed. And he's varied it enough like a veteran technical fighter. Because he knows Diaz is probably not going to go anywhere for a while, if for the rest of the fight.
Final 15 seconds of the 9th round. Russell fighting off the ropes for the combination.
See, sometimes Diaz does a good job of catching these shots, but he's got to come back and shoot something.
Listen, you gotta start. Don't try to go around them, okay?
Okay, what?
Don't keep going around them. Come underneath here, up here, and straight, okay? But you gotta go right away. You're letting him dictate the pace with the jab, and all he's doing is just doing this, and you're just.
Gary Russell very effective in that last round, as he has been. Starting with a lead left and then coming with the jab. We mentioned the creative combinations that he uses. That's not a normal one, and using the jab, as we pointed out, to do other things, to create opportunities. And their comment that Jojo Diaz would freeze when he throws combinations has been, for the most part, true. And that's something people have criticized Russell from time to time of doing, but in this case, Russell has done it to Diaz.
And the Russell jab, we talk about the punches, the combinations, the movement, everything, but the Russell jab has really been the thing that offset the Diaz attack this fight.
Well, since becoming featherweight champion and in his title-winning victory over Johnny Gonzalez, of course, Russell scored the knockout there. His 2 successful title defenses inside the distance. He has not recorded a knockout past the 7th round. And Jojo Diaz hanging tough here in round 10.
Diaz, in his last 5 fights, has averaged 51 punches per round according to show stats. Only 34 tonight. It's not the kind of volume that will get him a win.
And again, that's the Russell jab. It prevents Diaz from setting up offense and really placing himself in a position to throw punches.
And it should be noted that Diaz, thus far, no knockouts past round 9. But he desperately needs to show an uptick in offense, although, as you guys have mentioned throughout the fight, has been paralyzed by the blistering hand speed and the combinations of Gary Russell Jr.
Just has to punch in between some of this. See, that when Russell's touching, he's looking for a counter shot. So
there's a counter left by Diaz on cue, Paulie. And now Diaz digs away to the body with the left hand.
Right, you want to see some feints from Jojo Diaz. I haven't seen one feint all the whole fight. No. Sometimes you see Diaz trying to jab with Russell, and then Russell out-jabs him, and he makes Diaz put the jab back in his pocket. But maybe you vary it with some feints, make Russell react a little bit.
Even when he throws the jab and it misses, it gave him a chance, Diaz, to land that left hand. It's just
because, like I said, sometimes the jab, it puts you out of position, even if you slip it, and then the follow-up shot can land.
Double left hand by Diaz. Russell content now to be against the ropes, and he's dictating the pace of this fight.
And this has been a closer round for Diaz. Whether he has a chance to win it is another question.
Final minute of the 10th.
There you go, Joe. Hey, let him out. Easy. Step punches, step back. There you go.
Gary Russell Jr. has thrown more than 500 jabs. I recall a sensei by the name of Al Bernstein saying he had to establish the jab and the keys to victory. Well, a major key for Gary Russell Jr. tonight.
He's done it, that's for sure.
Good counter there.
Good counter by Diaz, the right hand.
He shows he's still alive in there.
Oh, yeah. But this was a round that was there for the taking for him, and I'm not sure he did enough.
Well, Jojo Diaz making it to the championship rounds in his first title fight against Gary Russell Jr. Also in the audience tonight from Baltimore, Maryland, one of the state's top fighters, Gervonta Davis, a super featherweight champion, popular in these parts and really wanting to be a role model for the Baltimore youth, a city that needs all the positivity it can get, and he really wants to help put Baltimore back on the map.
There was a point where their heads clashed in that last round as Diaz was coming in, and there was a lot of awkward activity. Yeah, we're lucky there wasn't a cut there. Diaz could have been cut. He kind of pulled Russell's head into him so that he would have created that had he been cut. But Diaz, good action on the inside. He stands that little left hand. Just did he do enough in that last round?
Now former featherweight champion Lee Selby can empathize with what we just witnessed.
Can he ever.
Two clash of heads. Opening cuts over both of his eyes. En route to losing his title to the undefeated Josh Warrington earlier today on Showtime's digital platforms. This is round 11. Gary Russell Jr. again quick to establish the jab. Gary Russell Jr. initiating the attacks, pot-shotting. Diaz now attacking the body with two, but again, the speed and the accuracy of Russell proving to be too much for Diaz out.
Yeah, and you know, it looked early in the fight like the pressure of Diaz and the body punching was going to make a little bit of a difference, but Russell has been able to use his lateral movement, the jab, and all the rest to nullify that.
It's smart by Russell, too, though, when he runs out of room, just to smother Diaz.
Exactly.
There he does it again. Taking away the space of Diaz to punch. As Diaz wants to fight, but...
Referee Chevalier waving that off. Diaz continues to attack the body as they lean into each other. Russell sneaks in a short right hand, another right hand, misses with the left cross. Liver shot and a left hook upstairs by the southpaw Diaz.
This was the geography that Diaz had early in the fight, and it's making this exciting.
But again, just like earlier in the fight, Russell doesn't back off, so it makes some nice exchanges.
Some uppercuts being exchanged on the inside. The fans at the MGM National Harbor cheering on their local favorite, Gary Russell Jr., but Diaz has his entourage here from California, including his family.
You know, for the first time in this fight, though, on the inside, Russell kind of pushing Diaz around a little bit more and landing more effectively.
No head clash of heads in there, too. Neither guy backing off, though.
A little bit of everything in this frenetic exchange down to the final minute of the 11th round. Russell pushing Diaz back.
Credit to Russell for the exchange, though, because he doesn't have to be in that kind of fight. He's up on the scorecards.
Good left cross by Gary Russell Jr. Two southpaws battling for a piece of the 126-pound title. A division that is providing plenty of fistic fireworks with more to come. June 9th in the rematch between Leo Santa Cruz and Abner Mares. Wouldn't it be nice for the victor of this fight to meet the winner of that battle in Los Angeles as Gary Russell Jr. and Jojo Diaz about to go to the 12th and final round.
Gary Russell went down in the last round, but it was not from a punch. Here he gets, there was a punch landed, but it didn't create the knockdown. He was pushed down by Jojo Diaz.
Don't let him reset, son. He tries to grab you, son. You pull back and go back underneath him. You understand?
Okay.
This is your last round, Joe. Yeah. You worked hard for this last round, okay? You can freaking stop him right here, Joe. You understand? Just keep working the body, and then when you start working those body shots and those uppercuts.
Look, control the jab, right? Anytime he tries to impose, put your jab there, sweep behind the ear, come back with your jab.
The final round of this bout is for the championship of the world.
Fatherly advice in both rounds. The 12th and final round. The champion, Gary Russell Jr., the challenger, Jojo Diaz. And Gary Russell Jr., who has showcased the skills and the speed that brought him to the top of the 126-pound division. And Jojo Diaz, he's showcasing the valor, the courage, and the guts that made him a mandatory challenger.
And this will be a great learning experience for Jojo Diaz. And I'm going to tell you what, this might be Russell's best performance of his career because he's done great against a good fighter. And we've talked about the fact that he doesn't always have the best opposition in front of him.
And Al, that's the thing. That sometimes you need some really good fighters to bring out the best out of you. And Jojo Diaz has been the quality tonight to bring the great assets out of Gary Russell Jr. style.
Step back on it. Let's go.
Gary Russell Jr. has on again. He goes down, but it's not the result of a punch.
Don't push him down. Step back. Let's go.
Referee Chevalier warning Diaz not to push Russell down, and a little rough housing on the inside here. The minute 45 left in the fight.
For Gary Russell, he's in a four-corner offense. Even though he's still punching, his job is to stay upright. That's his only job right now.
And Diaz looking for the Hail Mary.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Diaz needs to do his best to spider web impression and record that slam dunk out to complete the basketball metaphor as Diaz digging away at the body. Wow. Good exchange along the ropes.
He's trying.
And this is that youthful enthusiasm I was talking about. A young fighter, undefeated, never feels like he's beat until the final round, until the final bell.
Final 60 seconds of what has been an action-packed affair between featherweight champion Gary Russell Jr. and undefeated mandatory challenger Jojo Diaz.
Nice left by Diaz. Is Russell tired?
Russell's still punching back himself, but again, it's that ferocity that eventually you lose. It's that youthful ferocity, and Diaz, even though he's behind, he still wants to fight.
Diaz definitely wants this fight, bringing the fight to the champion, Gary Russell Jr. Lounging on the ropes. Russell, though, firing back with a blistering combination, more of a shoe shine than damaging.
I noticed Gary Russell looking at the big screen to see how much time is left in the round.
Final 20 seconds. Diaz continues to push forward, but time is running out. Diaz continues to attack the champion, Gary Russell Jr. And the crowd here, MGM National Harbor on his feet. Great fight in the featherweight division.
Respect to both these guys.
And that is a perfect punctuation mark on the proceedings.
For a one-sided fight, which you probably will be in scoring, it was a very entertaining matchup.
I had Diaz winning 4 rounds and 1 even.
Could be.
But I had Russell win the fight.
Let me get in there, Ralph, please. Let me get in.
Well, one of the keys we said earlier, in addition to the jab, one of the ones we said was punch in combination. And, of course, Gary Russell's so good at doing that. We saw that a lot in this fight as we look back. Throwing, 3, 4, 5 punches at a time. And not everything got there, but enough of them got there. And that right hook, of course, that's a signature weapon of Gary Russell, and he doesn't stop. And they felt that when he threw these combinations, Diaz would mostly be in a defensive posture and not fire back, and that's precisely what happened in this fight. And you see the really amazing combination punching of Russell. He puts you on the defensive and keeps throwing. There's a nice double right hook thrown into the middle of all that other punching, and so there's great technique here.
And here's another thing about Diaz. He doesn't want to lose position. He's holding his ground on the combinations, but he's not punching back. The reason you don't lose positioning is so you can punch right back, and that's the thing Diaz didn't do.
And talk about throwing punches and bunches. Gary Russell Jr. throwing nearly 1,000 punches in this fight out.
And intriguingly, you know, Diaz landed very effectively, a pretty good percentage, close to 40% when he threw, but Russell was so much busier, and ultimately, even though the numbers were close in terms of what was landed, it's round by round. But we'll see. Maybe the judges saw it differently.
Gary Russell, sorry, Al.
Sorry.
Gary Russell Jr. turned first fighter to turn pro on SHOWBox. Remember, Jojo Diaz was supposed to turn pro on CBS. The basketball game went into overtime. Now we will see if Gary Russell Jr. continues his reign as featherweight champion.
This is a fight in which Gary Russell enjoying the love from his home crowd, but this was a fight in which both fighters did very well. And even Jojo Diaz, a youngster in his first World Championship fight, has nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, Gary Russell Jr. said he wouldn't fight in his hometown until he had a title. This is his second consecutive title defense in front of friends and family. Of course, anytime there's a delay of this magnitude, you wonder. Always intriguing and compelling when it comes to the adjudication in boxing. Well, we finally have a decision. Let's go to Jimmy Lennon Jr.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 12 rounds of action, we go to the scorecards. We have a unanimous decision. Here are the score totals. Judge at ringside, David Breslow scores about 115 to 113. Judges Nathan Palmer and Dave Moretti both scored about 117 to 111. All three in favor of the winner. And still champion, Mr. Gary Russell Jr.
Third successful title defense for 126-pound belt holder Gary Russell Jr. as he improves to 29-1, handing Jojo Diaz his first loss as a professional, unless you take into consideration the World Series of Boxing, where he is 1-1.